a big thank you to the folks over at Nintendo for providing me a review copy to make this review possible. Thank you so much. So now with that said, let's get on to it. Resident Evil Requiem, or rather Resident Evil 9, is the latest heart-stopping horror game in this long-storied franchise, and it is developed and published by Capcom. With the franchise building up for years, always hinting at a conclusion for our legacy characters, Capcom decided that it's time to lean into that even heavier by teasing much of the same for our heroes in this newest game. However, does the teasing and hype pay off? Or was it a case of talking too much without delivering? Only one way to find out, so let's get spooky! Gameplay. I've been with this franchise since day one of its conception, and it's been a wild ride for the past 30 years. Yeah, that's right, 30 years. Oh man, the time has flown by way too quickly, and now I'm starting to become a real-life aging effect of Matt Damon in Saving Private Ryan. That's definitely how I feel at times. Or even worse, when I'm recalling a memory from 10 years ago and suddenly remember, hang on, that took place 20 years ago. Like, what the heck? What year is it? Through these years, it's been quite the journey I've went through personally as a kid to a teenager and now to an adult. And while the overall consensus with my time with the franchise has been a positive one, there's also a bit of trepidation too, which is not just tied to the side games released, but to the main series as well. My experience varied from entry to entry, with the original Resident Evil making me laugh at the god-awful FMV opening, even though it made no sense for me to since my old Acer PC, oh yeah, you know which one I'm talking about, the good old Acer Aspire. I used to love the cheesy as heck FMV related games, especially Police Quest SWAT. Corny FMV aside, Resident Evil was a true horror experience that kept my little heart pumping at the time, and yes, I did laugh at the Jill sandwich joke, sue me. I was a wee bairn, I didn't know any better.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Okay, never mind. It's still funny. I don't care. But Resident Evil 2 is where I truly fell in love with the franchise, by being introduced to Leon and Claire as they try to survive the horrors of Raccoon City. From the puzzles to the enemies, the mutated bosses, the foreboding atmosphere, everything was a step and above anything in the horror genre that I had personally played before, and even introduced me to the corny but iconic gun store owner scene, which I still quote word for word to this day, including the sound effects. Heck, I even reinstalled the game on modern platforms just to see the scene again, then shut it off. Yes, I love it that much.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here?
Classic.
Freeze! Who are ya? What are you doing here?
Hold your fire! I'm a human!
Sorry about that. I thought you were one of them.
What's going on in this town?
Hold on. I don't have a clue. By the time I figured out something was wrong, the entire city was infested with zombies.
Moving over now to Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica, I started to see the shift in creative and horror with Resident Evil 3 having great moments with Jill and Nemesis, which still gives me PTSD till this day with his constant haunting yell of stars, and then my girl Claire making a comeback with Code Veronica on Dreamcast. Well, at least where I first played it. Ah yes, good old Dreamcast! How I love thee! But that's a story for another day. Neither game was bad, but there's a shifting feeling to me that I just couldn't shake, and that was confirmed for me in the next entries of 4, 5, and 6. Resident Evil 4, while amazing, shifted more to taking the series into an action horror route with less scary vibe and more butt-whipping and legendary lines like,
"Got a collection of good things on sale, stranger."
but with the annoying as heck Ashley who wouldn't shut up with her "Leon, help! Leon, help!" that made me not even want to save her. Resident Evil 5 fully embracing the Xbox 360 era of P-filter making everything brown and yellow and washed out as co-op adventure was now the focus. And once again, action-based horror with ridiculous boulder punching. Like seriously, of all the things to do, who punches a boulder? Resident Evil 6 saw the issue and tried to balance the two between horror and action, with multiple campaigns switching between the two, and while I like the game personally, it fell short of completing its goal. Then here came Resident 7 and 8, and Capcom finally just said, screw it, we're just going to go first person, and really leaned into the horror aspect. And it worked great. Horror was finally back full-fledged into the series. But after 8, where do you go after such a crass camera and control scheme shift from the classic formula? Simple. Mix the two and make the next game a hybrid. Duh! They tried before with 6, but here we are with the 9th installment with Requiem, and this time it actually works pretty dang well. What sorcery is this? Arriving at the 9th installment with Requiem, the game itself feels both like an old friend, but at the same time like its own complete thing, due to Capcom going back to what works and embracing the more horror aspects that people fell in love with in the first place that allowed Resident Evil to become a powerhouse in the horror genre. Over the last 10 to even 15 years, many different horror games have come out that really have taken the shine away from Resident Evil and removed its stature as the king of survival horror. Many of these being indie titles, believe it or not. Because of this, Requiem almost comes off as a personal vendetta against the industry and more of a Michael Jordan PR speak of "I'm back."
Right? Gotta catch it first.
Oh my gosh!
But doing it in the most poetic way possible, with deciding to up the quality and raise the bar for the horror genre that people have been wanting out of this franchise for a very long time, maybe even since the original 2 entries. Here in Requiem, much like narrative shifts of Resident Evil 2 and even Resident Evil 6, you take on the roles of Grace Ashcroft, who is an FBI agent that doesn't really seem up to the task on her job the moment you meet her. And then there's our man, king of the one-liners himself, Leon Kennedy, who now works in the Division of Security Operations, an elite group under the president whose job is to combat bioorganic threats. Now, due to the new threats that lurk and various other circumstances, they must team up to unravel even more mysteries that have been left unsolved in regards to the Umbrella Corporation, with new antagonist, Professor Moody. I mean, Victor Gideon, being the one that continues to set the events of this title into motion. Unlike previous entries of the series, where things are a little too over the top, hammy, or just make you question all reality in general, again, like freaking punching boulders, Requiem calms it down a tad bit, but only a tad, because make no mistake, this game's story and gameplay still goes absolutely off the rails, just not to the extent that Square Enix takes it with their shenanigans with the Final Fantasy Remake trilogy. Yes, rest easy, that means no Force Ghosts or Force Zombies here in this game. I can finally be at peace. Unlike the past few entries, Requiem decides to go more story-heavy with its narrative in an effort to reel in longtime fans with Easter eggs and callbacks to older entries, as well as intrigue new players into wanting to know even more about the lore that this franchise has built up over the last 30 years, and in the end, takes us back to the basics, with evil scientists, experiments, and corrupt corporations ruining the world. A little plain-sounding at first? Maybe, but definitely better than anything that has come out of the recent live-action Resident Evil TV shows at the least. Resident Evil? More like Resident can't write a proper story to retain an audience, so I got cancelled after 1 season. Am I right, guys? Guys? Jeez, where did everyone go? Bingo? The story, as previously mentioned, jumps back and forth between the narrative that's going on at the time with Grace and then goes right back to the narrative that's unfolding with Leon, all activating at key points in the story that make the switching of campaigns feel natural and not as cumbersome or out of place as it did previously in Resident Evil 6. But it might miff a few people that were expecting a huge chunk of the game to just be about Leon, cause no, the whole game isn't about him. And honestly, I preferred it this way. I love Leon, but he's kind of been overexposed to the franchise as the main character. Being in multiple entries in the spotlight, the animated movies, his own game, remakes, spin-offs where you can take him down in Operation Raccoon City, etc. It's too much to keep having him carry the series by himself. So here in Requiem, roughly the first half of the game focuses on Grace, and around midway is when you start getting more of the Leon story bits. Think of it like disc switching in Resident Evil 2 for Leon and Claire's campaign, and it's basically the same deal, just done in the modern era. As stated previously, for older fans of the franchise who love their survival horror fix, then Grace's campaign sections of the story will be where you want to be, and a section that puts you in the rightful place of survival, as you have to mix and choose what to have and what not to have in your inventory at any given time, which means everything you find, you better remember where it was or make use of it as is, because it ain't coming with you. The same can be said for the limited amount of ammo that you will be able to use too, because in Grace's story side, the game is a tad bit unforgiving with how vicious some of the enemies are, even on standard mode, with 3 to 4 hits basically pulling a "you and your friends are dead, game over" Friday the 13th game over screen on you as you die and rage out. This makes every shot you take a vital one, because one shot might be all you've got, and you've got to make sure that it counts. So make sure you have some ink ribbons handy for those saves, because I guarantee you that you're gonna need them. Oh, the ink ribbons. Oh yeah, they're back, and in an even smaller quantity than before. But luckily, if you're playing on Nintendo Switch 2, you can get a tad bit sneaky and just go to sleep mode and bypass needing to save before ending every session, thus keeping the same amount of ribbons you have, as well as keeping your spot in the story at the same time.
You can't do that.
Yes I can, and yes I will. Luckily, there are ways to gain the advantage with the lack of ammunition, and that's in the way of crafting. Veterans of the series are no stranger to getting their mix on, like your Walter White using different colored herbs to find the right combination that will fill your health more efficiently. And once again, it makes its grand return. By finding and collecting blood samples, scrap material, herbs, and more, you're able to use Grace's ability to craft to create injectors for yourself. More ammunition to either stack your stock or replenish what you can, and even create some steroids so you can be just like Chris. What? I'm sorry, Chris will never beat the allegations. Bro was definitely juicing. The kicker in all this though, however, to get said blood samples to help initiate crafting, yeah, you gotta kill more enemies in order to obtain them. So if you see a bigger enemy than usual, just note that he's like the big blueberry girl in Willy Wonka, which means he's full of blood to be able to use. So just rush him and scream, no, not Leroy Jenkins, but instead let them know who you are. You are the one who knocks and proclaim, "You want stars? I'll show you stars!" And then proceed to leave them in a bloody heap, mission accomplished. But if you aren't fast enough, then it becomes a yin and yang situation. Not taking their blood sample fast enough will make them spawn into an even more terrifying monster who is quicker and hits harder, and the only way to even stop them is to buy some injections and stab them into them, which will make them explode into a big bloody glob like Wesker in Resident Evil 5.
Suck on this, Wesker.
But once more, you have a limited inventory, so you have to be careful with what you craft and when you craft it, making each situation Grace is put into even more intense and terrifying than the last one, which encourages you to try out different strategies through multiple playthroughs. But if the spooky survival horror was getting too much for you, luckily mid-game roughly, you get to move on to Leon's section of the campaign that is more of what you expect from modern Resident Evil 4 to 6, with action being the main focus. Unlike Grace's campaign, finding ammo and pew-pewing your enemies won't really be an issue due to the plentiful materials that you come across, alongside his inventory system that's similar to what you've previously gotten used to with Resident Evil Village, giving you way more space to play with and to do activities in. After getting your heart rate up and being careful as you can in Grace's campaign, at this point you just want to unleash all your frustrations out on those poor enemies with all your pent-up rage. And luckily, now you can, with even more hordes and waves of zombies to take on in true Leon fashion, with his signature roundhouse kicks, melee weapons, throwing spears should you want to keep distance if you are low on health, or finally getting revenge after all these years, and instead of being the one who gets their head sawed off with a chainsaw like in Resident Evil 4, now you too can take up the mantle as a wannabe Texas Chainsaw Massacre by wielding a chainsaw too. It's about time, honestly. But while everyone else is acting like they're the iconic Leatherface, I just see himself Chainsaw Charlie from the movie Slashers. Don't know that one? Well, that's not very nice at all. I encourage you to go look it up. It's a really, really bad B-movie, which means it's great. Now that I think about it, maybe Requiem is just one big horror homage to begin with. I mean, first we have a chainsaw to be Leatherface, then you get a hatchet to fight against the enemies in close combat, or perform last-second blocks like you're straight out of the horror-themed character of Paul Bunyan. Wait, he's not a horror character? I don't know, growing up he scared me. I mean, who else is able to summon a giant blue demon ox? That's right, a horror villain! But what happens if you run low on supplies, since you'll be using a ton of them during Leon's campaign? Simple, you find a shop. Now, before you get excited, there's no cool character like Resident Evil 4's merchant. Instead, it's a little bit more tame and underwhelming, with each shop just being random crates you find that have armor, weapons, health items, and to buy these items, you just have to kill enemies to get currency, much like blood samples with Grace when she kills zombies. Same thing, different process, really. Honestly, that was a tad bit disappointing for me, as I expected a little bit more, but hey, beggars can't be choosers, especially after going on an aggressive rampage in the game and collecting hundreds of currency in the process of doing so and feeling like Steve in Code Veronica, bad voiceover and all.
I can't! No! Father!
The balance between Grace's survival horror and Leon's action gameplay segments is actually quite astonishing because neither feels like they don't belong. They don't feel out of place, don't interrupt the pacing of the game, mechanics for both sections make sense. It's what they tried and failed to do with Resident Evil 6, but now have borderline perfected in Requiem. It really makes me feel like Jeff Goldblum with the "that SOB did it." During scenes you'd be expecting things to go off the wall like Capcom usually likes to do, it doesn't do it and pulls its punches and stays grounded to the story and the gameplay that has been put into place, leaving no room for eye-rolling or breaking the immersion the experience wants you to have. Be it that I'm playing on Switch 2, the visuals are quite honestly surprising as well, in a good way mind you. On first glance, the title on Switch 2 looks absolutely incredible and clean, and you can't believe it's running on hardware like Switch 2 because of the perception that things that look like this can only run on PlayStation 5 or an Xbox. But Capcom, just like Square Enix did with Final Fantasy VII Intergrade, proved the haters wrong, and not only made this game a visual sight to be seen on Switch 2, but gave it an extremely stable frame rate, with it mostly sticking at 60 FPS, even with all the action that takes place. Although there are obvious downsides to it as well, with a bit of aliasing issues here and there, or hair at times looking wonky, but I feel the hair thing is a nitpick personally. If you disagree with that, that's fine. I'll just have my buddy Nemesis turn you into a Jill sandwich. Get them, Nemesis!
Stars!
Overall, at the end of the day, Resident Evil Requiem was the Resident Evil entry I didn't know I needed, or rather the entry I never thought I'd be getting. Even with the gushing I have over it, it's not perfect, especially on Switch 2, with hair lower quality in some instances, the frame rate slightly dipping during super over-the-top action scenes, some visible edges on environments if looked at in the right angles, etc. Even so, with the amazing return-to-form survivor horror of Grace's campaign, fast-paced guns blazing gameplay of Leon, creepy and gorgeous-looking environments, Easter eggs scattered throughout the game that will make you pull the "I understood that" reference out of the bag, switching between first-person and third-person cameras as either Leon or Grace, for whatever immersion you want to give yourself, and an overall story that, at the end of the day, when the credits are rolled, helped the game to become the Resident Evil game I've wanted since the original 2 games got embedded into my brain, and now easily ranks as one of my favorite Resident Evil games in the entire franchise. And I feel that it will be the same for many other Resident Evil veterans as well. So with all that having been said, my verdict is clear. Gamachix says bye now.
Freeze! Who are you? What are you doing here?
Don't shoot! I'm a human!
Ooh. Sorry about that, babe. I thought you were one of them.
What's going on in this town?
Hold on. I ain't got no clue, darling. By the time I noticed something was wrong, the entire city was infested with zombies.